And I think that's is extremely important for something like this to carry on. Otherwise, I mean, it's something that risks fizzling
Mm-hmm.
and sort of wasting all this wonderful energy that's been created. Now, for something like this to come along and energize politics, it's not something that is very easy. It's,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, it is something that hasn't happened, maybe not ever.
Mm-hmm.
Some of your colleagues said that it's the best run campaign ever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coming from Canada, what do you feel it would take for this sort of energizing of politics and galvanizing of formally, let's say, less involved groups?
Well, I mean, the simple answer would be to say it takes someone as inspiring as Barack Obama. I don't know if we have anyone like that. But I guess at a deeper level, it maybe takes a political party with a platform that really speaks to national unity in the same way that Obama managed to make himself a unifying candidate. I think that part of the problem has been in Canada over the last little while is we have a collection of provinces as opposed to a country. I mean, we obviously haven't lost the country yet, but it's rare to see in Canada someone be able to appeal to all members of society, no matter where they come from, in the way that Obama did. Obviously, he appealed to people from rich and poor. He had support from every socio-economic background, and I think it helped him maybe that he came from Illinois, so he was not identified as an East Coast
Right.
liberal necessarily, although he was identified as a liberal. Here things are often very regionalized. I mean, Stéphane Dion has suffered quite badly as being seen as just not able to communicate to English Canada.
Which is kind of ironic since he was, I mean, steeped in the Quebec liberal tradition.
Yeah,
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 I mean, from a very early age. I mean,
yeah.
it's his own family background, his pedigree.
Yeah, well, Dion is obviously a federalist, and has a strong potential appeal to Quebecers and everyone outside of Quebec, but it never worked in his favor, and I think that having a unifying figure like Pierre Trudeau obviously would be something that would help a political party of any ideology to bring people together to fight for a common cause. And I think that what Obama did, although his campaign was quite detailed in some policy areas, such as healthcare, he didn't run as a single issue, or even he wasn't a single issue candidate, and he didn't run on a particular slate of issues. He had that as his platform, which everyone needs, but he transcended all that. He transcended particular wedge issues in favor of a real vision for America. And I've been watching elections in Canada, ever since I moved here many years ago, and I haven't really seen almost any election where we had somebody articulating a vision for the whole country. I think politicians here promise things to particular groups. They promise, more power to Quebec, or they promise, more oil independence for Canadians or Albertans in particular. And those things you need to do. You need to appeal to certain groups, but it's rare that a politician does a successful job of talking to all Canadians as a group, including Quebecers.
Wow. And I was wondering if perhaps there's a couple of reasons why maybe that could happen, and I was wondering what your opinion might be on that. Now, people often say that maybe the States has more of a unified cultural identity, or if not unified, at least unique,
Mm-hmm.
than Canada does. but it has been done before where we have had a prime minister or somebody in a leadership position in politics who's been able to unify Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it a bit of a chicken or the egg sort of scenario where we need to have a more unified Canadian sense to have some sort of chance of having that figure appear, or do we have to have the figure appear and then that person or that party would create the unity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's hard. It's hard exactly to know. What is the cause of the unity? Do you have a strong leader who comes forward and unifies everybody, like Obama seems to have done, or could Obama come forwards because Americans already have a clearer sense and more unified sense of who they are? My sense is that actually Canadians, in many respects, are more unified in terms of many of the values that we hold. And I just don't think that we articulate them as strongly and as loudly and proudly as Americans do. I think the States has real disagreement on the role of government. I think that you have Americans who are very pro-government, especially at this point in time. Very left-wing, even to the left of many Canadians. But obviously there are other elements in the United States that are very strong, that despise government and mistrustful of government. And I think that there's deep divisions in American society that are more profound maybe than divisions in Canadian society. I mean, in Canada we all long ago embraced the idea of public health care. We long ago embraced the idea of multiculturalism. We embraced a lot of values, and I think that what maybe works to the detriment of Canada is a certain amount of complacency. I think Obama really succeeded at this time because Bush was so incredibly unpopular, and so many Americans were really, really hurting. I mean, everyone that I talked to down there, and this is not my first visits to the United States. This is the third or fourth time I've been there in just the last year. I mean, the administration was hated, and people felt awful about where their country was. I think, the more kind of I want to say kind of the more liberal people were in the States this time, the more they've suffered over the last 8 years. Right. Whether they haven't all necessarily suffered financially or lost their jobs or lost their homes, although a lot have, but I think that they've really suffered seeing what's happened to their country. They really, everybody I think would like to be proud of their country, and they've had 8 years where it was very hard to be proud of their country with everything done in its name. We're maybe not at that point in Canada. I think there's a sense that things are not nearly as bad here, but the danger in that is people are maybe far too complacent in Canada, and that's why politics at the moment seems in a bit of a quagmire in Canada with successive minority governments and federally as well as even in Quebec. And no one really being inspired by any of the leaders that we have. Maybe the old adage that, desperate times call for desperate measures. I don't want to say Obama was a desperation candidate, but he was a gamble for a big establishment party like the Democrats. That was a big gamble. And but at the end, it paid off. It paid off, and it was like, I think people felt they had to do it. They had to do it. If they didn't embrace a candidate like that, they could have repeated the same mistakes of the last 8 years for another 4 years.
Right. Wow. So,